Crime. Crime. What is a crime? Please tell me. I don't know why policemen keep trying to play laser tag with me. What is a crime? Is this a crime? Is this a crime? This is definitely a crime. There are laws and crimes of all different kinds, all throughout time crimes by all kinds of minds. When New Zealand was taken by crime of the dime, we all sat back with a bottle of beer and said, fine. I'm Alice in Wonderland, your favourite Kiwi trans girl, and because my existence is a crime in 67 countries and also because I am a registered war I thought I would talk about some other high-profile criminals, like this guy, who is so goddamn cute it should be illegal. Oh, sentenced to cuddles of the highest order for 2 years. But more importantly, like this man, and like this man, all of whom are New Zealanders. Now it may shock you, but New Zealand actually has an incredible history of criminal activity. I would perhaps even say worse than Australia, which is of course the home of the So sit back, you little bastard. Probably shouldn't refer to my audience that way. So sit back, my lovelies, and relax and let me regale you with the stories of New Zealand crime stretching all the way back to 1855. I just find this topic so interesting and I've dove down a little bit of a rabbit hole and I am going to take you with me. You will not believe some of the shit that has happened here. Mackenzie the sheep stealer. This is a legend from all the way back in 1855. A folk hero, folks. In the sleepy March of 1855, 1,000 f***ing sheep were found to be missing from Level Station in South Canterbury. 1,000 f***ing sheep! I didn't even know there were that many sheep! How do you lose 1,000 f***ing sheep? Or perhaps a better question, how do you steal 1,000 f***ing sheep? Only God and Mackenzie the sheep stealer know, because they never got a peep out of the man even though they caught him red-handed. He was apprehended, and then arrested, and then he escaped. And walked 160 kilometers to Littleton, which is about 1,600 football fields for all you Americans out there. What an escape! No, actually, it wasn't, because he was then apprehended in Littleton and sent to prison, from which he escaped twice. And was caught again twice. And then he was pardoned and off to Australia, from where he had come from 5 years earlier. Bloody Australians sending us all their criminals. The Milford Sound log thief. How do you steal a massive tree trunk? With a homemade train, of course. With the homemade train! That's how! Wilson Raybury was arrested and charged in October of 1889 after a drunk worker found him steaming down the logging tracks in the middle of the night. The drunk had recognised a log he'd sworn down during the day and quickly fetched the police. The police arrived and the arrest more or less ended in a train chase. I shit you not. A f***ing train chase! Can you imagine that? How do you even do that? Just f***ing ram the The chase ended when Wilson's homemade tram derailed. He lost a finger in the accident but was otherwise okay. He spent 3 years in prison, during which ongoing police efforts identified a total of 63 stolen trunks of kauri and rimu wood. What did he need that much wood for? I've got no idea. Let me brainstorm some examples. He was trying to build an underground city powered by wood-burning stoves and by the sheer Chad energy of this man. He was planning to make the world's largest dildo, defeating a record previously held by Joseph Stalin, who was 11 years old at the time and 4'7". Perhaps he was trying to build a ship with which to sail the seas and mermaids like the absolute Chad he was. Anyway, moving on, allow me to tell you the story of the biggest manhunt in New Zealand history, which was, as it turns out, fueled by love. John McIlvaney was 38 years old in 1978 when his girlfriend of 6 years left him and flew back home to Invercargill, which is at the very bottom of the country. Supposedly after a night of heavy drinking, he just decided he couldn't let her go and he needed to follow. Unfortunately, he'd just been laid off from his job and didn't have enough money to buy a plane ticket. And his dick-sucking skills were severely lacking, so he really was shit out of luck. However, the next morning, McIlvaney noticed a yellow Mini Cooper being pulled over by the police. Supposedly the young driver hadn't been wearing a seatbelt. McIlvaney managed to talk the officer out of giving the young man a ticket, and the young man, Jerry Austin, offered to give McIlvaney a lift partway to Invercargill, without any payment. Not even a blowy. Turns out, of course, that Jerry Austin did not even own the Mini. He had in fact stolen a woman's wallet and used the ID and money inside to go and rent it. Great start. As they drove down south, they broke several laws and drew the attention of the police, as well as picked up a young woman called Shirl Mavis, whose skills far outweighed McIlvaney's. Around the central North Island, the trio purposely drove off without paying for petrol for the third time that day and were almost caught by police, but they managed to get away by driving into a wrecker's yard. At this point, the whole North Island police force is looking for this little yellow Mini. They keep going south towards Wellington and actually manage to get their car into an empty boxcar being loaded onto a ferry towards the South Island. They were then ferried across to Picton and attached to a train heading south. They spent a few days inside this boxcar with the Mini, but eventually disembarked, accidentally leaving Shirl behind. They didn't give a though, they just kept going. And throughout the South Island they were involved in no fewer than 3 police chases. And suddenly it was worldwide news. 2 utter wankers blasting down the country in a little yellow Mini, seemingly completely unstoppable. Doesn't matter what the police could do, they just couldn't get close enough to stop these guys. It was like some sort of folk legend being born. We were all watching it on television. But then in Dunedin, Jerry Austin was hit by a police car and arrested. McIlvaney managed to make a run for it and took the Mini the rest of the way to Invercargill. At this point, in order to pay for petrol and to avoid police roadblocks, they had been selling parts of the car for assistance. And so the car was little more than a husk. They had taken the fenders off, the windows out, the exhaust. It was just a box with an engine. It was a husk, just like me. I cry every time. When McIlvaney finally reached Invercargill, the armed offenders squad managed to shoot a hole in the Mini's petrol tank and it caught fire. It survived just long enough to make it to McIlvaney's girlfriend's house. They had a 3-second reunion, and then McIlvaney was promptly arrested. The things we do for love, huh? It sounds like the plot to a f***ing movie. It's just so absurd. The Dunedin booty snatcher. No, not body snatcher. Booty snatcher. You heard me correctly the first time. And remember, I don't make mistakes. This one is particularly perplexing, and the culprit was never found, so unfortunately we don't have a confession to go off. In the summer of 1962, a family of 3 were visiting the grave of their recently buried grandmother, only to find her body exhumed. In a panic, the police were called, and it was soon discovered that the grandmother's body was mostly intact, except that her buttocks had been removed. A further search through the graveyard found another 7 graves dug up in the same manner. A total of 16 buttocks had been stolen. It's just so bizarre, like I just cannot fathom the reasoning behind it. The case sat dormant for 8 months with no leads, but then it happened again at another graveyard. Another 12 buttocks gone. Outrage in Dunedin actually led to guards being posted outside graveyards. Keep your asses safe, people! Which worked well, because the next time it actually happened in a graveyard in Oamaru. And still, no traces. To this day, the perpetrator was never caught, and it never happened again after 1963. Who knows, maybe the culprit just had a taste for rump steak. Or maybe he just wanted a new drum kit. The Man Boy. 1983 in Auckland, it was found that a school child was in fact a 33-year-old man who was abnormally short and had been jumping between schools for decades. Alice, that's actually not true. That one's not real. Did you come from? You made me. Why would I do that? I don't need another dom. This isn't about that. This house ain't big enough for the 2 of us. Alice, put the gun down. Shut up, you sexy
Alice!
bitch. No!
Yes!
Alright, now, back to it. Wait. What the f*** is that music? Oh god, no. Please no! Not again! Don't do it! Welcome to the Alice in Wonderland halftime show. I'm your host, Alice in Wonderland, and today I have a special idea. You're going to love this. Today we shall be playing chess. Woo! Yeah! So here's how it works. I'm gonna make the first move because white privilege, and the most liked comment will decide the first move for the black pieces. Next video will play the next turn, and so on and so forth. Huh? Ready? Okay. My turn. Pawn D2 to D4. Bet you didn't see that one coming, huh? Yeah, that's right, you're in trouble now. Let me know your move in the comments. Back to your scheduled programming. Oh god, thank Christ we're back. I hate that Alice, she's a right bitch. Anyway, the next crime is how I didn't put out a video last weekend. I'm sorry, Auckland was flooded and we had no power. I couldn't record or edit anything, so this weekend's video is extra long to hopefully make up for it. Anyway, here are some clips of my flooded shenanigans. I've made an extraordinarily poor decision. I should not have gone for a walk. It was sunny 10 minutes ago. Now there's a tree in the fucking ocean. And now I'm trapped under a pine tree. It was sunny and lovely like 10 minutes ago. Had a break in the weather, making the slow walk home. There's the tree in the ocean. I am very wet. I also bought a Nerf gun. Fear me! This weapon will change the world. Why am I including it in this video, you may ask? Because of the war crimes. The world shall tremble before my might. That just went outside. It just went out the window. Oh no. The farming turf wars. This has been an ongoing feud across New Zealand for decades. Farming is a major industry in our country and competition is hotly contested. Several times farmers have found their fence posts moved slightly in, making their neighbours' paddocks slightly larger. Usually in retaliation, the farmers will push the fence posts slightly further than where they were, and so on and so forth until it becomes just an infernal grudge match. Occasionally there's a missing sheep, or a cow, or sometimes a person. Sometimes an orange tree has been picked clean slightly before the harvesting day. But some farms take their competitions particularly far. Down in the Waikato there's been an ongoing, there's no other way to put it, war between two farms, the Brownlees farm and the Avenhoffs farm. These two have been known to go so far as to spray pesticide on each other's pastures just to keep them down, and shooting intruders. This ongoing conflict boiled over in 2005 and ended with Keith Brownlee being shot in the chest and having to go to hospital. After this point, the acts of war have been mostly supervised by police and confined to weekly moving of the fence posts. Oh, and here's another crime. The fucking Auckland Council spraying our lawn with pesticide directly where we have council agreed no spray signs. I am about to start a fucking turf war with the Auckland Council. Come at me, bro! Strange thefts. We've already talked about booty theft, but there have been a multitude of other strange thefts in New Zealand. In June of 1984, under the cover of darkness, a Wellington man managed to steal a house. He stole a fucking house. How? I'm not talking like squatters' rules, like he went in and just made the place his own. No. This motherfucker rented a flatbed truck and picked up the fucking house and then moved it somewhere else. Can you imagine going on holiday and coming back and your house is just gone? How do you even do that without the neighbours noticing? And another strange theft. In 2011, way down in the south of Auckland, a man and a woman snuck into a rail yard and detached a DL 9020 diesel locomotive from its cars and took the bloody thing for a joyride. Joyriding in a train. I don't know. I don't get it. I guess there's not much else to do in South Auckland. North Shore for life. Also Henderson. That's West Auckland, but who gives a shit? Anyway, Kiwi Rail were of course quite stunned. Security was doubled after this event. Of all things, you stole a fucking train. Ooh, I've just thought of another crime. This. How about this? The Bungleton bank robbery. I have decided to regale you with this legend because it is the first bank robbery in New Zealand history. August of 1863. The HMS Bourtois docked in the port of Auckland Harbour. Little did the Aucklanders know that there was a man of particular menace on board. Dennis Hargreaves. He had been destined for Australia after being arrested in London, but had managed to jump ships to the Bourtois. Less than 3 hours after disembarking, Dennis had stolen a horse and a rifle and trounced into the bank. Or at least that's what he'd thought. He had actually walked into an inn and was promptly met by 3 or 4 rifle barrels pointed to his head. Making a hasty exit, he then went next door and found the actual Bungleton bank. After shooting the bank tender in the foot, he made off with $300 in 1863 money and was then chased by officers on horseback for 3 days. The Bungleton Bank actually collapsed the day after the robbery due to structural damage from Dennis's single shot, as it had damaged the foundation. He was never caught. Dennis would then reappear in Wellington robbing a bank a few months later, and then he popped up again in Auckland only to stow away on a ship and make his way back to England. And thus began the legend of Dennis the Menace. It is about at this point in the video that I prepare to blow your mind. You see, you have been deceived by I, Alice in Wonderland. the greatest criminal the world has ever seen, the most perfect con artist. Do you know what I stole? I just stole 14 minutes of your time. Because right now is the point in the video where I tell you that nothing is real. Everything was a lie. I made all of these up, and you believed me. Except for Mackenzie the sheep stealer. That one is actually real. The rest are just made up, or the plot of the 1981 NZ film Goodbye Pork Pie, which is in fact a masterpiece. You should watch it. Anyway, thanks for your time. It will greatly increase my lifespan. Have a lovely day. Also, just to let you know, the only way to retrieve your stolen lifespan is to hit the like and subscribe buttons. You can also actually make back double your lost life if you hit the bell. I promise that's not a lie. As we know, I'm extremely honest and everything I say is the truth.